Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm your host Albert, and this is episode 360.
We're going to roll our way right on through today.
All right. Excellent, Julius. Thank you for that.
Get it, Albert? Because it's a roll and right, so we're going to roll our way right through today. Get it? Get it, Albert?
Yeah. Yeah, right on, Julius. Right on. I get it. Hey, I'm a little under the weather, unfortunately, so I may miss a few jokes. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll miss the serious stuff.
Humorously, so am I.
Okay. Yeah, we went to Pennsylvania, and there's 30 people at the dinner there, and I guess I just got con crud from that or something.
We went to New York.
Okay. You probably crossed paths.
So we're going to get through today, and we're going to be chatting about roll and rights.
That's right, because this is episode 360. It's a popular mechanics episode where you pick a mechanic or something like that and talk about it. And so Julia said, Albert hates roll and rights. Let's talk about them.
I don't know Albert hates roll and rights, but yes, it definitely was a motivating factor. We were hoping to get some interesting discussion from Albert by doing that. But I will also note, by roll and rights, I am considering the entire genre of random and right. So it can be cards, it can be dice, it can be spinners, what have you, some sort of randomness that you then are keeping track of a game state by writing on another sheet of paper as opposed to keeping track with tokens or cards or player mats or whatever have you. It's actually being written down.
Yeah, that's pretty much the definition I'm using too. And you'll be happy to know I could have probably gotten away with claiming a role-playing game as a roll and write or a flip and write, but I'm not going there today. We're just talking board games in this case.
I'm glad you managed that, Albert.
Yeah. But boy, was it tempting because, I struggled a little bit to pick
I'm
something
a little
up.
surprised.
I mean, it's not that I don't know roll and writes. It's, like I said, I just don't really enjoy the genre as much, and I'm not sure why. I think I don't like the idea of the writing on paper, sort of like it's a legacy game kind of thing where, oh my gosh, a disposable game, that just feels wrong. It kind of sounds like a stretch, honestly. I'm not sure I believe that myself. I think the ones I have played for the most part are generally not that deep and not that fun. And they tend to be the kind where, you flip a card and everybody writes the same thing at the same time. And you want to see at the end who did what. Who put the number 3 in which space on the board, that sort of thing. And that kind of rolling right, you could play it solo, but it's sort of a beat your own high score kind of thing. And it tends to be less fun as if you're sitting around a table with everybody comparing notes after. I think maybe that's where I'm coming from.
I have disagreements with you on that because all, I guess not all, but many of the ones on my list are exactly that type of thing. And I'm perfectly fine with a beat your own high score type game. That sounds great to me. So yes, this is going to be my mechanic that I get to share. And what's really humorous to me is that one of the ones on my list I picked up because you reviewed it on this podcast.
Really? I wonder what that is. Interesting. Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing what that is. Hopefully it's not one of my 3. We shall see.
I put it as my last just in case it is. So why don't we let you go first?
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I will start. I'm going to do them in order. And by the way, folks, I hope the audio quality is not too bad. My microphone is broken. I'm going to go shopping for a new one after this, I think, or figuring out if I can fix it. But, hey, sorry. Anyway, so my first one is a big one, and actually it's probably the second one I played, which is Row Through the Ages. And that's an older game from like 2008, I think, at this point. It is who publishes that one? That's published by Eagle-Gryphon Games. And it is a game it's a civilization game, and you're playing just trying to advance your civilization, making points. But really what it is you're rolling dice, and if I remember correctly, it's been a while, it's sort of a Yahtzee style where you get to do some rerolls. And then you get to spend, once you finish your rolling, you can then decide how to spend what you've got. The dice have different symbols. I think they could have combat symbols, food symbols, urns as in pottery, and they each can be scored on different tracks. and then later on spend for different types of upgrades. For example, coins is another thing you could get. You're spending your dice, and if you're buying upgrades, they may give you some bonuses in the rerolls and things like that. Extra dice to roll. There's also consequences, like you have to feed people. That's where the food comes in. So the more people you have, the more dice you could roll, but the more food you need to be able to spend. The other neat thing about it is it uses a pegboard to keep, sort of like, say, a cribbage board, to keep track of everything. It's a
Yeah,
custom pegboard. That's really
that's
the
what I was
neatest
going to
part about
ask.
it. Yes. And you're
Because
keeping
we're
track
doing a
of
roll
your
and write
resources.
game, and you're picking something with a pegboard instead of writing.
No, you are still writing, though, because you're using the pegboard to keep track of your resources. But then when you spend them, you're writing on the paper to record what you're spending them on, which are the
Uh-huh.
different upgrades and stuff, which will get you points. Upgrades will give you points directly and also lead to more power to hopefully get bigger points. So it is a roll and write, but it uses the pegboard, and maybe that's why I like it so much. I'm doing less writing and more pegboarding, which sounds weird coming from me, I know, but that one's neat. It's classic. It's all wooden and paper. It's got wooden dice. It's got the wooden pegboard with wooden pegs, and there's a couple different versions. The ones I've played is rolled through the ages, the Bronze Age. There's also an Iron Age. There seems to be a late Bronze Age. I'm not sure what the differences between any of those are. I'm guessing they're all pretty similar mechanics and theme, and the way it works is just what technology was available at the time, probably, which affects the type of upgrades and bonuses you could get. I believe only actually the Iron Age might be the only one that's actually still in print, but I know Eagle-Gryphon, you could get all three of or both of them from them. I saw it as a combination pack recently, so it's out there. Actually, I saw it at my store today. I went by, and their Thanksgiving sale, they have the I think it's the Iron Age on their clearance section. So I'm thinking, maybe I should get that again. We'll see. We'll see. So that's my first one.
Interesting. I think, well, for me, this doesn't count as a roll and write game because the majority of everything you're doing is on that pegboard. So, as I recall, even it advanced further and they had the pegboard with the actual buildings where you put the buildings out with some of the later expansion types. Everything's around the pegboard. That roll and what you're considering a write is really nothing more than just the score. That's like saying that there's a score pad included in my copy of Creature Comfort, and therefore Creature Comfort is a roll and write. But it's not really. You're not. None of the game is on the score pad. It's just a score pad.
I don't know if that I agree with that, because on the score pad you're adding cities. When you add the cities, I believe that's what gets you extra dice to roll. So you're scoring. You're adding a city, and now you're gonna get extra dice. You're buying developments with the coins that you're tracking. You're tracking the coins in the cribbage board, but then you're spending them later on to buy an upgrade that makes you more powerful, so you can play better. So it's not just score; it is interactive. And that being said, many of the roll and writes, you really are just writing the score on the score pad anyway. So I don't know that that's any different, really.
No, that is so not true. Here we go.
uh,
Here we go. Let me
I
give
don't
you
know.
give you some
Okay.
counter examples to
Okay.
that. The first roll and write that I'm going to do is one of my favorites, which is Cartographers.
Mm-hmm.
Cartographers is a game where you are a cartographer of this fantasy realm. Now, then, you don't necessarily need to be completely accurate because they just want a map that depicts things, but it doesn't necessarily have to be completely 100% accurate. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a map that matches 4 sets of goals that you have. Each time you're going to have a small deck of cards, and that deck of cards is going to flip over to reveal usually a choice of 2 different types of terrain. So whether it be forests or wheat fields or houses or rivers or whatever it is. You'll then draw that on your big board, and your board is, I think it's 12 by 12, but you put that on your big board, and you'll draw it on. And you're often trying to fulfill the goals like adding houses to certain places, or adding houses next to rivers, or putting forests in the corners, and there's a whole pile of different goals that you want to be achieving as you're drawing that map. And that map is entirely being drawn with those cards. It's being fleshed out. And there's a number of enemies in the deck, and so the enemies are going to be there. You generally want to surround them with other terrain, for every spot around them that isn't surrounded, it's going to start be worth minus points. So you want to be strategic with where it is that you're putting the buildings to make sure that you're both fulfilling the objectives, cutting out negative points due to the monsters, surrounding mountains to be able to get coins. And the difference in objectives, the difference in the way those cards come out can make the game pretty replayable. There are expansions that add extra elements to the game, such as having an undercity and overcity, or having lava, or having a crevice between the two halves, all sorts of different things that add some different styles to the different cities. I usually use a color pencil for this one because I like making the art look nice. I know that I've seen and have considered picking up some stamps to be able to use stamps instead to start marking these things. I've seen the stamps look really cool. In fact, I saw some really cool stamp pens that the game Tend on Kickstarter was recently using. I was like, oh, I wish those stamp pens came out for Cartographers. Pick those up in a second. They looked really cool. But yeah. So
That's neat.
I very much enjoy this one. It's got a complex written dynamic. It's not just a set of tracks or not just simply a scoring thing. The whole map is being built as you write it, and people have drawn some really pretty maps. They turn their maps into little works of art as they're doing that. So this is a roll and write that I really enjoy. You can play it, 1 to 100, as Albert was saying. You can add any number of people all playing simultaneously, able to try and beat their own score. But I enjoy just having a good time playing the game. The game gives you a scale to determine how well you've done or how poorly you've done. And I'll look it up, but mostly I'm just enjoying playing the game, enjoying going through it and getting whatever score it is that I get. And if I got really good, I feel great. If it didn't get really good, then I enjoyed having a good time playing it, and we'll do it again next time. So that is Cartographers.
Mm-hmm. I remember playing that game and thinking it was okay, but again, it just didn't grab my attention. And I don't know why mechanically it was interesting. Trying to get the finding the best way to score a specific card each time it came out was interesting. But in the end, I just didn't feel satisfied from the play. And it's so odd because I think I would, in theory, I would enjoy it. I enjoy the idea of drawing, I enjoy the idea of writing on paper, and yet I don't enjoy it in these cases, which perplexes me. It really does. And there's expansions for that one now, aren't there? Like different, they're basically, I guess, different maps. Is that what it is?
Yeah, there's different maps I was talking about, like with lava and two styles of cities, or with little caves that you go through. A number of different things. That's Cartographers, heroes, and then there's actual heroes being involved in it. Uh, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but I wasn't comparing the necessarily ones. We were just talking about the base stuff. But yeah, that is what it is.
Well, that does. I mean, those add to the fun. I think. The base games is pretty replayable because the goal is just draw, and each time you play, you're drawing different cards that affects what you draw where. So I could see it not being necessary to add more for replayability. But I enjoy games that add options. Yeah, I mean that's a good one. I think for people that like rolling rights or drawing rights, as you said. Have you ever played it or played any of these on dry erase boards?
I have not. I would probably use a wet erase actually, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel no reason to. I enjoy the tactility of playing with a colored pencil on regular
Mm-hmm.
paper over dry erase or even wet erase. And there's plenty of sheets. The sheets are relatively inexpensive to get more of, so I don't have any need to be conservative. So I like it just the way it is.
Okay. Well, I mean that's a good choice, I think. For what it is. I will tell you my second game, and that would have to be probably the original Roll and Write. That will be Yahtzee. It is.
You're kidding.
I mean, people say that. I actually play that one once in a while. Once in a while, I have a pad right here next to me on my desk, and once in a while I'll pull it out and play. I haven't in a few years, honestly, but I find that one is easy to pull out, bro. Write some scores on, and play like 4 or 5 games in a row, compare them, and then not play again for a few years. And I find it satisfying. One time, I even made a little Yahtzee app for the computer to sit in the docking station of the laptop. I actually may have uploaded that to BGG. I maybe have one BGG for somebody if they want to add it. I don't know if it would work with anything near the like Windows 2000 maybe. But but yeah, that one I like that one. It's very simple and basic, but I think it distills rolling right to its basic elements of you're rolling those dice and trying to pick combinations. It's using poker hands basically. So they're very familiar, and the statistics in the poker hands are pretty familiar to many people. And each time, and you get 3 rolls for each round, and so you're trying to decide, boy, with these dice I have, what's the best one? It's an interesting enough choice, and it goes by quick enough that you go on, and you have what like 10 or 12 rolls each round, each game. You just see how you do, and then you play again, and it's in super simple, super easy. All you need is a pair, or 5 dice, some score pads, and a pencil. Minimal game right there. And like I said, I do find it fun. And there's so many versions. So if you want some theme, you could get like Doctor Who Yahtzee or Hello Kitty Yahtzee or Disney Yahtzee, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, I know it's a surprise, but it's a roll and write, and it works. And it's I think the original, you could say. I don't know that there's any older ones than that.
I cannot believe that you are coming onto this game, onto this show, and picking a 70-year-old game as your proposal
with
for a
with dubious origin.
role.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it works, and it distills roll and write to its basic elements. I think of chance and writing and planning and luck,
But it does it.
and no theme.
There's no. You're saying you can have theme by having it be Doctor Who Yahtzee. That's not theme.
Well, yes, I know,
That's
but what I like
literally
about it is,
the example of pasted on theme. And there's the
yeah,
mechanics
very
that
much.
literally you just roll and write. There's no decision.
Oh no, the
No,
the
no. Oh my
the
gosh.
Dalek shaped dice rolling cup is fantastic. I got that one for my wife a few years
You
ago as a
have
Christmas
got to
gift.
be kidding me, Albert. You have got to be kidding me.
I think it's a fun game. I really do.
All right, so I'm going to pick a different one.
Go
One that
for
I
it.
even thought I convinced you about that got you to print off a copy and play. I'm going to talk about dungeon pages.
Ooh, I forgot about that one actually.
Yeah, I think you forgot about many of the ones on my list. I feel like you've forgotten about because you're going to pick them. Dungeon Pages is a solo-only roll and write game where you are, excuse me, you are a hero in a dungeon. And you are rolling 3 white light dice and 2 dark dice, I believe. And the dark dice are going to be used to trigger monsters, and all of them are just used to place on the board where it is that you're exploring. So you'll roll all your numbers, and you'll have to write the numbers on your dungeon as you're expanding around. If you write the numbers appropriately, you'll be able to use pairs of numbers to be able to collect items, use high enough numbers to be able to defeat enemies, and you're trying to explore slowly through this dungeon. Now, the dungeon will have its chance to strike back at you, so if you roll the wrong set of numbers, you may cause some of the monsters to attack and deal damage to you. But ideally, you'll never do that. As you form a a completely connected path of numbers between the treasure and the exit, you will finish off that floor of the dungeon, and you will total up your XP, and your XP will be used to level up your character. As you level up your character, you'll be able to buy different weapons that might allow you to skip spaces or go diagonal or for one-time abilities or add extra dice that you'll be able to use. And you'll run into the next dungeon level with all your new stuff and keep going until you reach the double-sized final boss level. And the double-sized final boss level, you must again... I don't think you actually have to defeat the boss, but often you get plenty more XP for defeating the boss. So you'll generally want to defeat the final boss by getting enough numbers to surround him, beat him up, steal the treasure, and get out of there all without dying. It is an excellent version of a roll and write dungeon crawl type game. Where there's a ton of decisions about where you want to put the pass, if you want to try and skip over, if you want to try and get coins, if all hope feels lost and it's just not working out, you have to deal with that. And there were 52 just for dungeon pages, because what they did is for their Kickstarter, they released one every week, a new page every week with a new dungeon, a new character, and you can interchange between characters and dungeons. Just snip right along the middle of the printed out page, combine whichever ones you want, and have at it. And there was a lot of interesting connections between the different ones and trying to work out this character with this dungeon, things like that, or just randomly pick some. With all those different ones, there's a bunch of replayability, a bunch of mechanics. They've continued to put out new ones as we've gone through. So then they had a sci-fi themed one, and now they have the Overland one. And now there's a Kickstarter that they've announced coming out for a new type of one with new different mechanics and new different stuff. And they keep pushing these out. For me, it's an excellent, excuse me, it is an excellent value for money. Very good game. The joy and excitement of waiting for the new release and trying to defeat the current dungeon over the week before the next one comes out is a fun little chase to be able to make as you keep going through that. So all that is Dungeon Pages, the dungeon roll and write game. Very fun. Highly recommend.
I'd forgotten about that game completely, but yeah, it is a good one. Okay, I'll admit I like that one a lot. I am actually tempted to just commandeer that from you and make it my second, have you pick a different one for your second, but I won't do that to you.
You could. I have enough backup because I was fully concerned that you were going to grab that one and my next one.
Well, no. I played that one and I did like it. It was a lot of fun. That one had choices. You had from the beginning, even before you started rolling, like each page has like 5 different maps to go to or something like that?
Has 5 maps in the big map.
Okay, and so choosing the first one matters, right?
Absolutely.
The one that's listed first on the page might be harder than the second one, and that may depend on the character you're playing potentially, I guess, even, right? Because do you have different characters? Yeah,
you do.
So that is a good one, and it's a little bit of a campaign game. You play multiple games. Each map is one game out of the 5 or 6 games on the sheet. So play lasts a while. Yeah, I like that one. Dungeon Pages. Good call, Julius.
Why, thank you, Albert. So what's your third? And let's see if you manage, or your second, I guess. What's your next one? We'll see whether or not you managed to figure out which one I think I got from you.
Well, so go ahead. That was my second. What's your second, Julius? What's your first? You're behind still.
Albert, my next one on my list is Railroad Inc. This is one that this is one that you had a copy of and you proposed to review it. And I've since both picked up the digital one, got a copy just of base, but I played with some of the expansions for it. In Railroad Inc., you have a pad, which I believe is a dry erase pad, but you have a pad where you are rolling these 4 dice, and each round you have to put on your pad a drawing of what it is that those 4 dice do. So it could be that there's going to be roads, it could be that there's going to be railroads, and you'll have to move those around to be able to connect up the different exits and combine up how they're going in and out and achieving goals. And then there's expansions that actually give goals, special goals for each level, things like that. So those 4 dice are surprisingly simple for giving so much game and so much decision about how it is that you're going to build out that map. I've since gotten a ton more plays in of the digital edition, which has a daily challenge to be able to have custom dice and to be able to have custom challenges and slightly different rules alterations to be able to do that. And it all fits in your pocket. It's a pretty small and endearing roll and write. But whether you're playing digital, playing physical, it is a very fun little roll and write, all about trying to match up your railroads and your roads to be able to make a big network and score points while having as few errors as possible. And that is Railroad Inc.
I remember enjoying the play of it well enough. I think it was fast. It was easy enough to play. The biggest issue I remember having with it was the dry erase boards. I've never played the digital version, and it was hard to draw anything that looked nice and wasn't just a big mess, and even kind of hard to read afterwards sometimes.
Use
because of the dry erase markers are just kind of thick. Well, wet erase, whatever.
Just buy some Expo wet erase, because I don't use the ones that came with it. I have some Expo wet erase ones that work just the same, and they're much better.
Yeah, I think a few times playing the game, I accidentally put my hand down and erase something as I was drawing on the left side. Erase something on the right and I'm drawing on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played the digital version. I bet you that would solve that issue.
Yeah, I highly recommend the digital version if you like a little bit of digital gaming. So yeah, that's fun.
And so there's many versions of this game, right? There's like a blue edition and a green edition and a red edition, and they're all the base game. I don't think there's any one individually they would call the original base game. They all came out at the same time, but they all have slightly different rules and work differently, if I remember correctly. And
Yes.
and you could mix and match them. And the things are like, from what I recall, like one has a lake, another one might have, I don't know, cities or forests or something. I don't know. I'm making up. I remember the lake. That's the only one I played.
Yes.
And so that was kind of neat. The idea of being able to mix them and match them by getting different colors. And there's expansions in different colors too, which I don't know anything about them.
Yes.
I like that about them. I've been tempted to buy them again more than once, just because of the idea of buying different games and mix and matching to play. But I've stopped. I sold mine at the game store, and
You sold yours?
apparently the I have sold multiple roll and write games to the game store, and the same person would buy them each time, and he was selling some of his other solo games that were not roll and write, and I was the one that was buying them. So we had a little symbiotic relationship, getting the games each other didn't like. A couple of times, I think once or twice, I saw him at the store, and he said, "Oh, you should buy this roll and write," because he knew I didn't like him, and he would end up getting it used. So yeah, the what's the game called again? Train
You're talking about
Island
Railroad Ink?
Railroading. Thank you. Yep. So there we go. Railroading.
Yep.
An interesting choice.
And one I
Okay.
picked up entirely from you. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to count that as your third or
I know. I do
how
not.
you want to
I
handle that.
I like I said. I think it was funny enough playing, but I got frustrated with the dry erase stuff. So I'm not gonna. I don't want it. You can have it. Don't give it back even. Um. Actually, so for my third one, I actually have two different ones that I could pick from. Um, or I guess my fourth, because I've already done three. I've done Yahtzee, I've done Road Through the Ages, and I've done the Dungeon Pages. So my fourth one would have to be the one I originally went with, which is OctoDice. Um, Not a deep game. It was in the same series as Aquasphere by Stefan Feld, but it was not by Stefan Feld. And in that it was the same theme of an underwater subsidy. But this is a game for 1 through 4 players. You're playing over 3 rounds. Each round, and I'll describe the multiplayer. Each round, you roll your dice, and you get to do a couple re-rolls. I think each time you have to keep 2 of the dice of your choice. So at the end, so you've done 3 re-rolls total at the end. Once you've done that, there's white dice and black dice. You got to pick white die and a black die combination, and use that for scoring on your board. And you do that twice. Everybody else can pick one combination and score it on their board from your turn. Um, so each person will go around and do this once for the whole turn or the whole round, whatever. You could pick one person's dice. So if I take the first player's dice to make my extra off turn choice, I cannot use a second or third person's. I'm stuck. Um, there's a lot of different ways to score. There's like five different symbols on all the dice, and I think there's a wild to remember right or the octopus. So each of those score differently. Some you need sedge, some you need lots of the same or lots of different colors, I think. And I'm kind of fudging here because I don't really remember exactly. But you need different combinations, and there's one that you could use to upgrade your submarine and follow a path. There's 3 different paths each game, and they could be different because there's a set of tiles that you use, and you lay them out, and you can put them either side up each game. So you end up playing one of 3, going up these different paths and upgrading your sub to be more powerful. The first few upgrades will give you bonuses of more power. The last one gives you points. So you could choose an upgrade path to get more points. but all 6 tracks in the game, or all 5 types of scoring in the game, each work a little different, and you can focus on some of them. You don't have to do everything to do well in this game. I found it fun. The solo game is different in that since you're not taking somebody else's, instead of having, I'm blaming my hiccup. I think I haven't been describing it super well. Each round, you're going to write 2 times on your sheet, plus a third from the other player. I did say that. So it's going to go around twice for each round, and there's 3 rounds total. If you're playing solo, you're going to do the 2 rounds like normal, and then you're going to do a third round, and write that on there, or something like that. I don't remember exact details, but it is interesting. There's choices of how you spend the dice and how you score points. It's sort of a point salad type game, and I found that fun. Not super deep, light, easy, quick to play, and yeah, that's it. That's OctoDice.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Aquasphere, so I remember taking a look at this. It's not one I've had an opportunity to play, but I wouldn't mind it.
Sadly, it is hard to find. I've never seen it again. I think it went out of print. It probably just didn't do too well for whatever reason. When I played it multiplayer, I had fun with the group. When I played it solo, I had fun too.
So I wanted to run through 2 honorable mentions from me, if you don't mind another moment.
Don't you still need your third?
Oh, that's true. Well, then, in that case, this is better an honorable mention. I'm going to say Clip Cut Parks. Now, then, whether or not you'll consider this a roll and write, but Clip Cut Parks is a random and make some sort of physical change to a piece of paper. Because in Clip Cut Parks, you are going to be using some dice to determine how it is that you're going to be cutting apart this piece of paper. And the piece of paper has a bunch of squares on it in different, practically different colors. So you got blue, orange, green, red. And so you'll roll the dice and it might say 1, 2, 3 on it. So you can cut out a 1 square length cut with a piece of actual scissors that are included with the game, and then a 2, and then a 3. And if anything is detached from your game board and comes off, you will then place it on some mission goal cards. And you'll have to place them on those mission goal cards trying to fulfill all of your certain missions. Some of the stuff that you cut out might give you a bonus token, and that might let you change some things, or it might be that the token is required to fulfill a goal, or whatever it is. So those things will all have elements about where it is. So you want to be very strategic with your cutting to be able to give yourself some options, or how does it try to do that? But on the other hand, you don't want to cut too much, because anything that you cut off and can't use, you tear up, or actually you crush up into a ball, and it's worth minus points at the end of the game for wasting valuable resources. This is I suppose it's not a roll and write, but it's a roll and make physical changes type of thing that is unique in that it's got scissors. Instead of writing, you're cutting apart an actual piece of paper to make these squares, to make these tetramino type things where you're cutting into different shapes, even if it's just a 2x1, but sometimes it makes like L's and tetra shapes to try and fit into things. All very cool things. Very neat trying to do that last strategy going into where you want to make the cut and how is it you do that when you're playing multiplayers, trying to race other players to be able to do that. So it is the roll and cut game, Clip Cut Parks.
Okay. That is such an interesting choice. I mean, it is, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like a neat game. I remember you talking about it before. I've never played it.
Yeah,
I think
I'd say it is a roll. It is a randomize and make physical changes to a piece of paper. Because, like, you could say, "Hey, you don't." If you're playing with stamps, you're stamping and not writing. But no, it's making a physical change that you cannot imitate with just tokens on a board, and you cannot do that with this.
I guess I could see that. That is an interesting choice. So it is very different, and I do like that about it.
That is very true.
Yep.
One more honorable mention, which is a game I really would like to play but do not own a copy of, and that is Three Sisters. I don't own it yet, but it looks really interesting. I just simply haven't had a time or a chance or an opportunity to play it. I don't have a copy to play it, so I'd have to borrow one if I ever wanted to play it. But Three Sisters it feels like an Ove Rosenberg game, but it's actually a Ben Pinchback game. But you are trying to make this land, you're trying to use a bunch of fields appropriately to plant different types of plants and vegetables and pumpkins across different places. So you got your fruits and your vegetables and your birds and all these sorts of things, and you're rolling and placing numbers in all sorts of different plays. It is on my list. I had been hoping that I would be able to borrow a copy or play a copy or find one of my local group and play it before we got back around to the roll and write between when it is that we brought this up and now. We didn't, and so it's making my honorable mention as a thing I would like to do at one point.
Okay, I think I've seen that game at the store, but I didn't know anything about it. I do know what the Three Sisters refers to, though. That's
I know what the Three Sisters refers to.
Corns,
it's an agricultural
right?
method.
Green beans.
Yeah.
But specifically, it was the corn, green beans,
wheat,
and I think pumpkins.
Oh, pumpkins.
Right?
Good beans was pumpkins.
Maybe it was a ground, right? So the corn grows up, and the beans climb the corn, and then you have the ground plants also that give it all cover in the ground to protect it from the heat. And planting the three together apparently worked really well. So that's exciting that I know what that is, even if it doesn't really have a whole lot to do here. Well, that's it. So that's your honorable mention, or is Clip Cup Parks your honorable mention?
Well, Clip Cup Parks has become my 3rd/4th, and Three Sisters is my honorable mention because I would really like to play it.
Okay. Well, I'll just mention one more honorable mention. The other one I had considered adding, which another older one, pretty simple, is Catan dice game, which again I like Yahtzee. I've played that a fair bit. Super simple. There's not a whole lot to it. You're just drawing roads, and you're rolling dice Yahtzee style, and then you're drawing, and you could draw roads and buildings, and you could cross out different workers and get some resources. Very simple. Honestly, there's a little bit of a progression in it, which is kind of neat. So you kind of got to advance in certain tracks, but it feels less complex than Yahtzee actually, but still, simple fun game. I do like that one. And one of the nice things about it is it's been pretty readily available. I've seen it at Walgreens, for example. I saw it at Barnes & Noble. Occasionally, I will find a copy on clearance or at the thrift stores. It's not surprisingly hard to find. I've found 2 or 3 before in the past. So at this point, I have the older version that comes in a box. I have extra score pads in there galore. So that's not a bad one to. If you come across it at a thrift store somewhere cheap, it's not a bad one to try if you want something simple and light.
Very nice. All right, Albert, I think we've just about rolled out the welcome mat for these games. Shall we right our ship and head on out?
Yeah, do you think it'd be unfair if we erased it and tried again?
No, Albert, we've done that far too many times in this podcast. Please tell me you hit the record button.
I did. All right, then. Well, thank you, Julius. And we'll talk again next week.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.